David, you ugly head. Did you forget what you saw about she smile?
Maybe you forgot what you said about Mickey Mouse. Oh my god.
I love this movie, man.
Welcome everybody to another episode. I don't know. Maybe they don't know what we are covering this in this episode. Gio?
Probably not.
It's not. It's not in the title of the episode or in the lower third of the video.
No, no,
You
no.
know.
It's not even the year it was filmed.
Hello everybody, and for this episode we have one podcast that I listen to regularly.
Thank you.
And I am excited to bring um, Jacked Up Review Podcast to our show. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome.
Glad to have you.
Can you tell our audience what your show is about and where they can find you?
Yes, so we've been going strong for about 3 years now. We came in just as the pandemic was kind of just kicking everyone to the side of the curb, and we just decided, hey, I just got a bunch of various bloggers and friends together, and we were just like, and even other podcasts that I admire, and it really just changed my mental health. It really just allowed me, it's like, hey, there's so many people and fan bases from around the globe. Let's just keep kind of just talking into stuff that has both been talked about, but let's do our take, and then let's talk into stuff that I don't think any podcast has taken on before.
Let's keep our sanity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We covered all kinds of video games, nostalgia, music bands, TV shows, and film franchises. The hardest part was definitely doing TV shows. I'm like, okay, come on. I know someone out there has seen this. It's just, do they want to be on a podcast and talk about it? And I then had to force myself. It's like, hey, it doesn't all have to be done, this year. It can be done the next year. Just prep for it. And because I didn't want anyone to wait for their episode to air and wanted to have something for everybody. Like I saw some people like who would do a Star Trek podcast, but they weren't really open to anything else, and vice versa. I saw people they only wanted to talk about horror, and I was like, well, that's fine. But I want something for everybody. So I was like, here's an interview with some celeb who's kind of a cult fandom. Here's a music band discussion, and then here's a movie and a TV show chat. 5, so you get 5 episodes a week. That's what you're getting.
Nice.
Awesome.
That's
Awesome.
one of the fun things about your podcast too, man. It's
And
the
the music.
diversity. It's like everybody feels welcome to.
Oh, thank you. That was a pal of mine I had done a music video 4 years ago. I can show it to you. And he was just like, I want to do something new. I'm like, well, I'm looking for someone to do a TV show theme, so please just
Awesome.
send it my way.
So I'm gonna say what I always say in every episode, and just because I say it multiple times doesn't diminish.
Doesn't change the meaning.
Doesn't make you an acting wife, man. Doesn't
Exactly.
make you an acting wife.
I am a fan of the show, and since we are a long format show, this is a time where I told you can pause our show, go ahead and download the last episode of Jacked Up Reviews, and reach out to me and let me know if if I deserve a thank you. But
and honestly, listeners, we are a polyamorous podcast. No jealousy. Go for it.
you can post our show. That I do that all the time. So
Power to the podcasters.
And where can they find you?
You can find us on Spotify, Anchor, Podbean, Apple, just about every platform. And we try our best to just, even find new places and networks to be on, and there's something for everybody. It really is. We'll take requests. We're not doing a Patreon yet because we legit want to actually kind of interact, and maybe even have you on. It's like, hey, if no one's talking about your favorite music or TV show, is like, and we give ourselves time to prep. It's like there's plenty of them. It's like, hey, wanted to see this for a while. This DVD set's been collecting dust. Now's a better time than ever to just take it out and record in a month.
Awesome.
Nice.
Okay, so you heard it, Gio. The party is over there.
Yep.
Whoop. Not as big a party as what's in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. um, okay, so let's go into the first segment.
Define science fiction remnant.
So for this segment, actually, I'm gonna be taking over, and I'm gonna be reading.
snap.
Yep, Captain Chaos to the wheel. Jesus, take the
Captain,
wheel.
Captain Chaos.
Take it. Help me, Tom Cruise.
And basically, I'm gonna read a review that I had on our podcast review in Apple Podcasts. Liked it very much. It says that if you're a sci-fi lover, I think that this is the podcast for you. I enjoy the content and it speaks about movies and books that are not mainstream and commercial products. Yet these are good or better. I enjoy the insight that the host brings in reaching the details of these properties.
Mm.
Well, I really like that one. It's kind of funny what your the perception is when you're talking about something that you really love talking about. You have that passion and actually um, moves on into the recording. So I
You
really
derail
love
a
that.
lot. You derail a lot, like I did in last episode.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. Uh, I don't know if you have it. Do you have a take on how many? I don't know exactly how many episodes you have heard of our show. If you
A
want to
bunch.
jump.
I'd say, especially with your District 9 review,
Oh,
you guys are very
Oh, that was a
atmospheric.
good one.
You're
District 9.
atmospheric. You try to paint a portrait just like the many visuals that you're describing in the movie.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I mean,
Unlike
the funny
you're
thing is that
not
when Robert and I started this, like we would spend hours watching a movie. Like a 3 hour movie would be a 6 hour movie because we're just pausing and then like talking about it.
you're right. Got to move on. Got to move on. And you're not distracted by where's the streaming or how did you first come to realize it. Now you're pretty much just like, where does this why is this considered a sci-fi great movie?
Mhm. You can imagine when we were watching Ready Player One. It's a
Oh my
long movie.
God.
And it took us like
Took
7 hours.
days. It took days.
All the Easter
And
eggs.
I still love that episode. Though,
Oh yeah, I was watching it actually when we were doing uh our next episode that is gonna air before this one goes in the show. I watched Alita before because I was going to Radio Chaos, and right off you see the suggestion it had Radio Play. I'm like, I'll rewatch it, man. It won't hurt me.
awesome. Okay, let's move right along. We are Science Fiction Remnant.
This is the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
We are the Caribbean Science Fiction Network.
We are Monorats.
We are One Accord Level 2 Podcast.
This is Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable and Open Pike Night.
This is Sci-Fi.
Okay.
Always love that. And there have been some great interviews on FSF and Sudden and Inevitable. We were actually constantly talking about. I was on QuestMe and
Yes.
talking about the brown codes, and it's like, and years ago that would have been kind of just like, well, what on earth is a brown coat, And so it is funny how with all these sci-fi movies and shows, how they kind of come in waves and forms. And when you were asking me on, I was just like, oh, I'm not sure if I'd seen that or I think I just did that. So it was fun just kind of just planning this with you guys. It was like, have you seen Enemy Mine? It's another one
The more episodes you have in your podcast, the more you're gonna start wondering that because at least you get talking.
Exactly.
Gasping at straws. And
Now you gotta go scroll through your catalog.
Can we cover that?
It's a great thing that you mentioned that because that was the whole idea, and then I talk about this in every episode, and I don't get tired of saying the same thing over again.
we love you, man.
Yeah, this is we have, and just like in that little segment that you heard, the collection of different podcasts that talk about sci-fi topics, and that was a dream when I started the podcast back in the beginning because, like you said, you find different silos. People that want to talk about Star Trek, people that want to talk about Star Wars, but you don't find that niche where you can find someone that want to talk about every sci-fi property there is. and this is great. You know, there's no judgment. At least I haven't found, you know, negativity on the group. And the the hashtag this is sci-fi, it's basically what you would go into um post if you are a creator, a sci-fi creator, or even if you're not a sci-fi creator and you have an episode or a book or something separate that you did that is sci-fi, you want to use that hashtag, because not only we have creators in there, but we have also fans. And again, I always get comments where like the discovery is big. People going like, "Oh my god, I never heard of this before. What is this?" I'll go ahead and watch it. And that's the I think the big value about it is because it happens to me too, where you finish something and there's a hole in your heart. You finish,
You
maybe
want it. You want those 5 seasons you're not going to get. When is
exactly.
the next season of Space Above and Beyond or Captain Power airing? Never. Firefly, it's still on the horizon. I remember my mother and I saw this sci-fi buddy show. It involved a futuristic cop played by Carl Urban and a cyborg played by Michael Ealy. It was called Almost Human. And for that whole remainder of the year, we were like, "Oh, it's coming back. Surely it's not coming back." Damn. But
Yeah.
it was funny because we had to remind ourselves, like, you know, this is what good TV does to you. It doesn't matter what the ratings game was. And in the case of movies, it's the same deal. It's like you would find that obscure one on one of the movie channels, and you're like, "Oh, I never got a proper DVD release." But with this one, fortunately, there's 2 different Blu-rays. And if you want to get the very expensive Twilight Time with a essay by a like a film historian and like a like a commentary track, you can get that one. I decided to get the region-free one from the UK that also has different features, and I'm gonna actually be introducing it to my uncle for this Christmas, because I'm just like, oh, some of the best Star Trek and Stargate episodes are based off this one, and like that, this is everything you want in a movie. It's the philosophy, 2 characters preventing themselves from committing war crimes and getting over the racism of each other, the systematic, we must be at war for eternity, and just the whole history of it, how it's taken on a life of its own. It was often, you know, considered, hey, well made, but forgettable movie at the time. It was, you know, it didn't make any money back. While researching, I had no idea that before Wolfgang Peterson, you know, who at that point had just made Das Boot, you know, had made and Never Ending Story, there was someone else attached. And I'm a big filmmaker, but fan, and I watched the whole documentary series of the directors, and Wolfgang Peterson kind of just left this movie off. He was just kind of so dismayed by how it did so bad. It just didn't have much of a place in his heart, which is a shame, because the minute I see anyone bring that movie up, it's often it is kind of like a retro music album or a
Exactly.
less drunken beer. It's like there's many people who do do like this movie, but it only comes up if you get the invite, kind of.
Yeah.
True.
So yeah, and this is the kind of thing that we, you know, we love about that hashtag. You know, I can bring, like, you find also that I post a lot of articles, scientific articles.
Great stuff.
I post, you know, like I keep on finding, like, you know, best movies that are leaving Netflix that are related to sci-fi. And so that's a great discovery, and that's just me. But like, you have other people posting, and I always find something new from other people. It's like, oh my god, I haven't seen this in a while. Oh, what is this? And he starts the conversation on sci-fi, and I love that. Gio,
It
you have?
really,
I'm sorry.
really does. It really does. It really just kind of floats everyone's boat of, hey, we're not just talking about what you love talking about or a giant franchise. We're also, like you say, you're opening up a discovery section, and then by even sharing all these bloggers, sometimes they respond. You're like, hey, thanks. I didn't know anyone read that article I put time into. It is a fun kind of pat on the back for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Gio, you had anything to add to that?
Yeah. Well, to this is sci-fi. I wanted to mention and a special thank you to the podcast that never died, that they're actually announcing they use the hashtag as well, which helps keeps this topic alive. And they're announcing their episode that they recorded on the Bill and Ted Excellent Travels, which
Yeah.
was a fun episode, man.
It was a fun episode. Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure. Talk about a double feature. We released the episodes almost close to each other. So go ahead and listen to both of our episodes, and you'll get a complete different perspective. For example, we love that Aaron Aaron doesn't quite love this movie, but
Dude.
but it was so much fun. Not only to listen to their episode, I actually listened to it, but also when we had him on our show talking about that movie, it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. It was.
It's fun
Okay.
too because then
Go ahead.
whenever you take on something that you're maybe like you like but you don't love, it's even or you're trying to rewatch and discover why everyone likes it. It is kind of fun just kind of seeing how like someone will kind of go into extra detail on why uh, it's hard to describe. Basically, they make it make even better sense to you. I will always even look up a podcast on a movie I otherwise don't like because I just know eventually they're going to sum up why this movie that I will never or I like, but I don't love like everyone, or I have struggled to like. It's like they are making it make all this much more sense than any commentary track could ever do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I do.
For Robert, there's no hating movie. He just didn't hate the movie or loved it.
Well, if you heard me enough on our episodes, you know that if it had a sad ending, I don't like the movie.
No, it's
You
fine.
don't hate the movie.
And sometimes you can even make a funny podcast episode of that. We did one recently on Top Gun. We're just like, we just don't like this military propaganda posing as a blockbuster movie. But it's funny just kind of describing is like, why does this hit home for so many?
Yeah. And you know, you have a point there. I mean, the great thing about that is different perspectives. I have heard a lot of podcasts on movies that I watch, even podcasts that have done an episode that we have done previously.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy the different perspectives. Usually I'm like, I never really thought about it that way. And I love
This
that.
is an allegory for this? Who? What? Now I gotta read.
Yeah. So it's amazing. I really love the engagement so far. And I know it could be a little daunting. You know, there's a lot of
Yes.
posts, but that's what makes it so great, in my opinion.
Mhm.
It reawakens you in a way. It's just like, man, I gotta get with the program. What was I thinking? How did I
Awesome.
miss that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I told my mother the other day about I just got in one of the newer Planet of the Apes, like the classic movies. There's a Blu-ray collection that came out, I think, around 2016. I got it discounted on eBay, and
Nice.
I was telling her about the allegories when she laughed me off. Oh, why would you want to watch those dumb movies? She's only familiar with the infamous Tim Burton remake. So as she's describing it to me, I'm like, you have a very jaded. No, you're getting that mixed up with that
We're rewriting this.
that remake. And she's like, okay, so describe to me why people like Planet of the Apes. I'm like, well, because it's an allegory for slavery, and much like Enemy Mine, it's based off a best-selling book that had a lot of themes. It appealed to a lot of the same kind of people who kind of like Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica. They like the parallels it makes to, unwinnable war, just destroyed societies. It's more than just Mad Max or Terminator, where it's using a sci-fi backdrop for action set pieces, and they're moving the story onwards to it's taking a singular story and then building up all these other obstacles and world building. But
Yeah.
it's there's still going to probably be some people who watch it and there's like, kind of like even with Babylon 5, is like they just can't get past the production or visual and aesthetic of it all, and they're just like, that just looks too cheesy for me. I'm sorry. I know it's not direct to video or poorly made, but there's just something I just can't wrap my hand around. And it is interesting. I'm kind of the same way when I introduce a horror comedy to some people. Some people will eat it up, and there's others who are like, that is the worst. Oh, that actually played at a theater. And even with the various Star Wars, that's interesting which ones people tune out of. I kind of feel like now that it's kind of gone the way of Buck Rogers with having all these giant TV show miniseries, I'm kind of like, wow, I kind of wanted all this meaty material from Star Wars years ago. We're just now getting.
Hey, Gio, notice what Cam just did? He mentioned Babylon 5.
Yep. We have to get to it.
Happens.
I'm sorry. I'll get to watch it.
No, it's fine.
No, but like it's an eternal battle between Ray, our other co-host, because Ray is dying for us to watch it. And Robert is an older sci-fi fan. I mean, I'm a fan of old things like you, and that's how we got to actually have good chemistry.
Yeah,
but Robert,
that's
like,
fair warning. You're not
wanted
going to
to
get
take
anything
away-
from the pilot,
oh yeah,
but you'll get something from the episodes 2 to 50 onwards. It's one of the. It's going to test your patience. It's now on HBO Max, so that'll be easier to stream and get into.
Oh no, we've been warned already. He told us that it gets good after second season.
It's
like The Office. It's like The
really?
Office. It's like The Office.
It's interesting. I've seen some people like season 1, but they don't note some of the other season there. It is. I mean, it's like all the other sci-fi action shows. Is like the rough draft is there in the first few episodes, and the rest is just kind of building up to a bigger narrative. I think it just helps that its momentum really grew when it hit DVD back in like 03, 04. So then it added to its various aesthetic that it had been trying to build all these years and made better sense to people. But I mean, much like this, I mean, everything is due to have a second audience. Like, you guys did review District 9, which this movie is similar to, and I was just like, I tried introducing it to other people, and they just were like, maybe I should have been in the theater when I saw it. It's like, well, maybe you should just be patient. It's not trying to be like any other movie you're trying to watch. E.T., Aliens, Terminator.
I think that many people also expect just entertainment out of a movie.
They don't want to use their brain after a long day at work.
Movies, I don't think. I mean, it's not a bad critic. I mean, that's why we're unique on our own manner. But like, I think that brainy material properties are not for everybody. You know, thought-provoking things that they feel like on the edge of the seat. Not many people like it.
Yeah, and that's okay. You know that there's so many properties out there, but I just really enjoy it. You know.
Yeah, you guys can watch American Pie. That's totally fine.
But you know, I am the kind of sci-fi fan that has seen both Buck Rogers, so I think I can enjoy season 1 of Babylon 5.
Oh, totally.
But Rogers or Butt Fuckers from the
President
Randall?
Buck Rogers.
Stay tuned for the R-rated Patreon episode.
No, I don't know if you know, but we made our episodes explicit for that reason.
Yeah, no, I know. I just
Captain
I'm just giving a meeting. Fair warning.
Okay.
Wait, do you guys know that the Drax are Buddhist?
Might as well.
It's true, man.
Some kind
when he started talking about the Dalim, I was like, holy shit, bro.
Spaceship.
Yep.
It's like Buddhism.
Gio, are you ready for your segment?
Oh, yeah. Today, first time, actually. Shout out. So for the shout outs in this episode, actually, I want to give a special thank you to the Matrix Space Frasier, and the handle is Joni Eponymous. Just like it sounds. Joni Eponymous is the handle for retweeting and also engaging on a conversation. A special thank you. And also a big thank you to the GreatestTrek. And their handle is just like that, the GreatestTrek. And also to horror author GP Dumas, and his actual handle is author GP Dumas, for retweeting and mentioning us and having us out there for others to actually get to our material. We really appreciate the support. We cannot thank you enough. And we'll leave it at that for this segment.
Awesome, awesome. So, we don't have an outer remnant for this episode. So,
It'll be the inner one today.
are we ready to jump in?
You got it. Yeah.
Gio, you want to do? I don't know if you found a synopsis of. I mean, there is a plot, but I don't know if you want to just do the
What? No,
synopsis
just
or you just want to do the plot.
I will say go to the plot. I mean, I can make a synopsis on my what I got from the movie.
Okay, I can.
You want to go experimental and no wheels, no seatbelts.
Yeah, it's up to you. I mean, I'm looking at it. I guess I could read it. I figure synopsis might be better, but
Do you want me to give you my take on it, like a summary?
go ahead.
So basically, what I got from it is this is a movie where we are already like a space, fully spatial. Humans are fully spatial habitat. They're not in Earth anymore. Just like it says in the movie, it's just a mere memory. They don't really tell you how many centuries or millennials they've been out there. And basically it's just war out there. Which I actually found funny because I would think like if you're there and you're just waiting for war to come, you'll go out there and see what's there to actually go home. But they were just waiting out there for war. Very human of us. And basically they got after so many years of waiting, they got into an altercation with another race, which was called the Drags, and the guy just got to Happy Trigger and followed into his own downfall, and they fall onto a barren planet. It looks like Mars with winter and volcanoes. Mars doesn't get hot actually, which I actually found curious. Like there was actually oxygen to breathe with no trees at all. But
Yeah.
like making long story short, they they get together, they get past the I keep you hostage and you keep me a hostage thing, and then they start a love and hate relationship as friends where they try to understand each other so they can survive.
Yeah.
And from all of that, they actually turn out to be very, very good friends. And then our friend Drag has a baby, go to buy milk, and never comes back. Or kicks a bucket if you want to call it something else, and leaves our human friend with a drag baby. And so after that, there turns out to be that there's visitors in the planet, but they are actually slavers. That's human slavers that take as slaves drags. And basically, the union which he works for as humans, they accepted these kind of things because they were at wars with with the drags. It was acceptable. You know, it's like you're taking care of a trouble in a way. Of course, by this point, he's not having that outlook of how good this is. Actually, it becomes a danger for him because he cares for this little creature that he's raising, that is a drag offspring. And long story short, they take the kid because, of course, you tell a kid don't do that, and he's like just telling like go straight to it. And so the kid waits for Papa or Uncle to fall asleep and or take out too many beers, escapes to the camp to check what's up, and they take him hostage. He tries to rescue him. We think that supposedly he falls to his death. He turns out to be alive once he's in the base. They try to identify it, and he comes back for him and saves him. Uh, Makes all happy ending, and like Robert likes it. And
Happy.
basically, oh yeah, this Disney ending because thanks to Mickey Mouse, man.
Yeah, Disney ending with no princess.
And basically he's standing up to his vow that he made to his friend Drag before he goes, that he will take his child to back to the Drags and sings his lineage. And basically the mere act of what he did shows that there are no really bounds or barriers between us as living beings. uh I really liked it because the movie has a beautiful closing, you know, great development, and the closing was just very, very fulfilling.
I would have to ask, right? Since this had the typical, well, you know what I like, the typical Disney ending. Can you say there's some is a Disney's princess?
I would say that like it kind of attach a lot to the modernity of times that we have with gender equality and stuff like that. He's a he she or they.
Yeah, but this is another thing. If you think about it, this movie was made in 1985, and it I find it amazing in retrospect that this movie touches that subject so early on.
You want me to tell you something? This is older than we think it is. It's just being a taboo because of social biases, because how society wants to shape us up to be when we are not to be what society means. If no, we are to make society what it's supposed to be, not the other way around. And like I read a book many years ago. It's called The Autobiography of a Yogi, and he talks a lot about Buddhism and his life as a Buddhist. But it's not merely about Buddhism. He talks about engaging with people of other religious backgrounds too, in a free manner. Not trying to say like you had to become a Buddhist or I had to become your creed. But seeing them as equals. And for example, you know that the word diva, which is meant for a beautiful woman, actually is beautiful in Hindi.
Yeah.
And have you noticed how yogis like you cannot really tell from afar when they're young enough if they are a guy or a girl because they have long hair, they have beautiful skin, and they look very soft. And it's because they explain when you are a spiritual being, you have to be in touch with both sides, with your feminine and your masculine side. And I think that that's why, besides the principles that the drags follow, are very very similar to what Buddhism and Taoism goes for. Their ways and their race as it is talks a lot about that background as well. And I wouldn't doubt that the writers actually grab a lot from it too, because it's just hilarious. Like it's just ironic. So many similarities that back up into it.
Oh, totally. This is basically an unofficial LGBTQ movie before there was such a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, and that's what I find so amazing. That um, it was there in front of our eyes,
It's support
and
to single parents because they don't have a partner to really raise a kid. Well, in this movie, he had it, but he had to raise it alone too.
yeah, I found really interesting how um, it, in the movie there was a scene where uh, Davish and Drag were having a conversation, and he says how humans, that they're trying to run away from the feeling of loneliness, and
Yes,
that's why
Mm.
humans have split into
yes,
male and female, because since they're hunger for that connection, they're hunger for that fleeting moment when they joined, and makes them feel more,
wholesome,
less
complete.
alone, and that's why drags, they don't bother with this, and they're both female and male at the same time,
Hmm.
and I
Yeah,
found that really fascinating.
and they
The only fucked
reproduce
up
kind of
thing,
asexually, and much like how we've had to deal with all these trolls online who thought, shows
yeah,
like Star Trek, were just mindless, sci-fi shoot 'em up and feel good. It's like we've had to remind people for years, if you want to get social commentary in and get everyone to shut up and get the right people figured out, you got to just put it in a template like this. I mean, that's why some of the best horror movies hit home, is when they take real life stuff and make it even more frightening.
yeah, it's true. And I mean, the only fucked up thing that I had to comment about is you don't know when you get pregnant. That's messed up, man. If you
Yeah.
had a heads up, right? It just
Well,
happens when you're ready.
That sounds very inconvenient, if you ask me, because he says,
it's kind of a parallel for unplanned pregnancy. No one plans to become a parent sometimes, and in this
Most
case,
times, most times,
uh,
that's the
how would
ideal.
you
That's the
feel if
ideal
you're on
to
the opposite
plan it.
end and you're having
Mhm.
to raise this, alien that you don't want to have any
Yep,
connection to? And now you have to say, well, buck her up. I got a soul.
yep.
that is really hard, and I think that's also um, a
This movie is
reflection
not
of what is
predictable.
Yeah. I think that is a reflection of what being a first time parent is. Um,
Mhm.
because when he found himself, he thought, a drag was pregnant. He was having, a baby. And I think at that moment, even all the way to the very moment when the birth was taking place, he was taking comfort in the fact that he's a human,
Yes.
and this is a drag, but I'll have the alien to help me because he knows what the race is. So it was really shocking to him when he realizes, holy crap, he's going to die. I'm going to be left alone with this baby. I don't know what they eat. I don't know how to take care of it. And
Yeah.
I'm alone in this. And this is like, I have two girls. I remember what it is when I had my first born, and it hits home because it's kind of like, although it was planned, you all you could do is read books and articles, but
There are no
nothing really
manuals.
prepares you for the
No
first hand
manuals.
experience.
No, there's no.
That's completely different.
Yeah, and every kid is different too.
Mhm.
There are no manuals for having kids, and that's the other thing. Most people think that it's like every single one of us and our perception and how we see the world
Bingo.
and make meaning of it.
Bingo.
Oh, yeah, we create meaning from experience, and people don't understand that. People think that customs and what we're supposed to be is like something normal, like and mainstream, like shoelaces or shoe size. It's not
Isn't
like
it
that.
funny? Those same people who complain about everything being formulaic at the same time wanted to kind of be the same all the time. It's just
Yep.
like, you so don't be a contrarian, guys. You can't have this every way. Don't complain about there being a lack of new content and groundbreaking ideas if you want it to be the same A, B, and C plot. I mean, this whole plotting, I do have to applaud them. When I look at it even more,
Yeah.
everyone is just who's complaining about it being generic either seems like they're not much of a genre fan, or again, they're just not looking at the bigger picture. They're not prepared to get that. And don't get me wrong, this is all
It's
part
what
of the
I call it's what I call
subjectivity.
side 220. They cannot see beyond the nose.
Sci 220. And it's just interesting how, I mean, yes, there are some movies that people like to pretend are deeper than they actually are. And I look at them and I'm like, nah, that's just, you guys are too much in love with this. You're doing more work than the filmmakers did. But
Oh,
with this, I feel like they did a good job of just keeping it fast paced. It is
yeah.
kind of, I figured, yeah, I never thought about the coal mine at the end. I just figured, enemy mine. It was just, again, just two enemies facing off, like the meaning is hinting at. And that is wild that the people at Fox thought viewers were too stupid to get that. So they're like, put in a mine near the end.
Yeah, I think it's a movie that was beyond its time for sure, but it was a cry for a change that was needed to be had too. And I mean, like
Yeah.
like all things, eventually. I mean, you've noticed, like we're constantly changing society and evolving in our ways. It's just a matter of consistency, of keeping pushing for it until it will come to a place where we'll have the right advocates and the right ears that are gonna make this happen and make people know, like, this has to happen, and let people that are bystanders or that just want things to stay the same because it's more convenient for them, which I
Right.
think that's just selfish. It's like
Yeah.
like
They're
when your freedom
basically,
when your freedom goes beyond what's my freedom, that's not freedom anymore. It's not equality.
anyone who thinks that's sound is probably one of the bad guys in this movie, who is, of course, an evil corporate, guy who's like, "Brr, yeah, it's okay." I will admit, if there's any complaint I got about the movie, it does kind of go on a little overlong at the end, but I think that's just a matter of it being dated. That's just when every blockbuster movie had to have some epic finale and like 20 more minutes of fighting. And I don't think that's a detriment to the movie at all, though.
No, not at all. I mean, at the end of the movie, when they start like telling what happened at the end, I was like, no, 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 I want to see what happens. And actually, they
Yeah.
showed. I was like, yes. But I was actually like feeling like already defeated. I was like, oh my god, no, they're gonna end it with this background on the space, and they're not gonna show me when they go to the drags. And actually, he walks amongst them, and that's so iconic. I mean, that's the big closure and the big fireworks at the end of the movie to me is seeing him walking among the drags, the only human. And then when they said that actually his name was added to the lineage, I was like, wow, man, wow, touche.
And this is why I said we were speaking about this prior to the episode, and how this movie, one of the messages that it has is how love transcends
Love
even hate.
transcends. Yep.
Even hate.
That
And
was
just
pure
knowing
bromance, man. Bromance
the
on his bed flower.
the the fact that these two races are at war, and he's able to transcend that to the point where he is the very first human to be added to a lineage and being part of a drag family.
And
That is a
war
big
war
thing.
become completely irrelevant to him.
Mhm.
Did you notice that? Like war become completely relevant to him. Those humans became his enemies instead of his rescuers. The moment that Symes came into the picture, and that's like that was instinctive. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we all have that instinct inside of us, that paternal, maternal instinct. Uh, doesn't matter what creature you have, you develop that, even if it's not come from you within. It's inside of us, you know. It's part of our primal instincts.
I I
It's
always
definitely
wonder.
inside of us. Yeah.
Mhm.
The
I,
better good wins out.
I always wondered because I don't know if it's a sign of a different era. That's makes me sound so old. But I remember in elementary school or middle school, I would have fights, fist fights, where we ended up going to the principal office with black eyes, and
No
those
beef.
people
No beef
end up
with black
becoming
eyes.
my best friends. And this is it's sad to me that right now is the worst case scenario. I mean, if you piss somebody off, they could pull up a gun and there you go. That's the end of it. But
It's even more sinister, man. I've noticed that some people actually they will try to socially destroy you instead
Mhm.
of just facing you face to face. So they will use other type of weapons that are psychological to be more detrimental. And I mean, that's just despiteful
Well,
and sad.
the reason why I brought this up is because we have we have two characters. They are obviously they hate each other for good reasons. For example, the drag killed God knows how many humans. But to make it more personal, the 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 guy that was on the ship ended up dead as a result with a very
But you see, and to me, the guy that was in the ship with Devich he was dead because of Devich's fault. To me,
yeah, but
not
that's not
because of the
how
drag.
that's not how he sees it, and
No, of course.
why when he got out of there he had that vengeance in mind. But see what happens is now that they, and I think drag was the one who noticed this first. Now they see themselves in this planet where this planet is hostile. They are isolated. I mean, worst case, I mean, you don't have
There's
to
like
look at
some
it in
squids
that.
running around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, that creepy ass monster, man. I had to talk to Robert about it. I was like, dude, that monster is fucking creepy, man.
Yeah.
That little thing with the arm. Oh no, man.
Yeah. And I mean, just think about it this way. Just think about how you are cast away in an island with your worst enemy.
Not with Wilson.
Your worst enemy. Think about your worst enemy. You cast away on this island, and the only way to survive is to join forces. That
Yeah.
forces you to get to know that person. And this is what I think the issue is nowadays, is that we're so used to the glass in our face, the screen, computer screen, the phone screen. and we kind of have this we don't associate usernames to real people.
Hmm.
And you know, humans are normally selfish to begin with, and when you take away that
No, they're not.
from
No, just
the
kidding. Go ahead.
when you take away that from the equation, now the person in the other end is just a username, is not an actual person. So we don't have that what I call that
That
um
ethical calling, that morale.
we don't relate.
No, I
So
mean, I told you these become playgrounds for us to be what we are not daring to be here, because we have a moral code to follow through, so we can coexist. But these virtual realms that we have created allow us to be that and actually do things that we would not dare to do in real life because they will have real repercussions. You know.
Right?
and I think, I mean, when you hear people say, "Oh, it's the violent video games, the violent movies," I don't think that has anything
Animes
to
is
do
for
with it.
kids.
And the people who bring it up are often the ones who already have them. So, what are you trying to do?
I think the issue is that it's just that once we stop looking at other people as people, that's when the issue starts. And this is where that movie, granted, this might be a message for today's era. But at the time in 1985, I still remember you go out with friends, you know, and you socialize and you're face to face,
People
and it
rarely
was
do
kind
that
of,
anymore.
it was very hard to think about people as numbers or letters because you had them in your face. Now is very easy. So this is one thing that I like about this movie. Although it wasn't a message for its time, it's a perfect message for today, where these people, they hated each other, are forced to work together to survive, and in doing so, they learned to know each other. They're in each other's faces, and
Yep.
they learn to know. Okay,
They learn to
he's a
look at the
different
bigger
race.
picture.
He's a different race, but it doesn't matter. He's a person, and they became the best friends. And
Mhm.
this is one, if there's one message that I want people to take away from this movie, it would be that, because society as it is today, it's really sad because
Guys,
of that.
guys, that's what I love, your ugly heads.
Yeah, ugly face.
But this movie, man, this movie, it's like there is too many layers of social issues. It's what I told you. Like it was not an action movie for at all. It was more a lot like drama, because I mean I feel I felt compelled like dramatically, like oh my god, what's gonna happen, and I felt for each character the stress of what was to follow in the next portion of the movie or so, you
Yeah.
know. And then there's a lot of emotional carriage on it too.
Oh yeah. Another thing that I think this movie did great is um it kept you at the edge of your seat in a way that you have
Holding a
character,
napkin,
characters going through peril,
yeah,
and you're thinking that's it, you know, there's no freaking way they're gonna get out of this unscathed, and at the very last second they're saved.
yeah. And I mean, and I tell you, like I found ironic the irreverence of Davidge towards the drags, trying to bring him into his principles and showing him where he comes from, his descendants, his past, his customs. I mean, to me, it was comical because many people are like that. Sometimes you're telling something that is very endearing or deep to you, and people take it like it's a joke or they're very irreverent to it, you know.
Correct.
And these are topics that we're not really willing to just open up to anybody. And when we do, those are the things that also keep the people that are good from fending in and just closing back into themselves and not trying to keep on changing the world, not that the world change them, you know.
Hmm.
which
And
happened
that's
very
just
often.
it. Both characters we think aren't going to be changed at all. We think, Dennis Quaid, he was kind of discount Harrison Ford at the time, kind of still is. We were just like, okay, he's going to
He
be
looked like
rowdy.
Harrison Ford when he put the coat. I even sang on the movie like that,
Yeah,
with the hat in that coat. Man, I was like, oh man, this is another freaking Indiana Jones.
uh,
Awesome.
But this movie, to me too, like it was a beautifully made and perfectly mix of comedy too, because he had a good taste of comedy. Way too much. All the American reference that he brought in. Not only Mickey Mouse. Like there's a part that when talking about the rescue, like no, easier gonna find a greyhound up here. And I'm like, what? And he just makes many references like that when he's teaching Sammy's how to play football. It was beautiful, man. And,
Oh
and
yes.
it shows a lot of
football. Yeah.
it shows such a beautiful and scenes like that, for me they're beautiful because they show something that we know is beautiful and nice, but we don't like to talk about or be open about innocence. It shows the innocence not only on the kid but on him, and the love that was in this man, that actually he's not very emotional, and when the kid comes in, it just those walls just fall off on their own.
It really does. And to make it even worse, none of them are ready to. I mean, that's part of where it does get suspenseful is to deal with all the various um, backlash that's going to probably occur. They just aren't. They're already trying to adjust the planet. There's all these squids and bugs, and then next thing you know, they are having to realize, okay, well, we better actually get ready because there's going to be some outside forces here. But they're
Hmm.
still having to get along with each other. But it never goes into a routine buddy movie either.
Yeah.
And when that happened, actually, when that actually came into execution, I got amazed, and actually I feel a moment of owie when I saw that, because they saw this human walking in on a military uniform, but the moment he started talking drag, it was like they just accepted him like one of them, you know. And I was like, wow, like it's so important that when you are like in a content between two forces, that one is wiser than the other. Because would it be like drags look at us just like humans look at them, they would have just chopping down in pieces walking into the mine.
Yeah.
Very
And
nice.
interesting that you mentioned that, because it's the opposite happened when he
Yeah.
is going into the Earth ship that he got shot. He's going to the hospital, whatever it is, to fix him, and he's talking drag, and they automatically say, "Okay, this is a drag spy." Doesn't matter the
Yeah.
record, the military record that he had, and even you can tell the friends there's no way he's going to be a spy because of his record. His military
Hmm.
record is spotless. But yeah, the top guy says, oh, he is a spy for the drags, automatically, because he's speaking drag.
Assumption makes an
Because
ass
they
of you.
said it, therefore it must be true. And yeah,
And I
they,
mean,
they don't treat anyone.
I learned something. That's just an opinion. An opinion has like buttholes. Everybody has theirs. you know,
Eh,
it's not a fact. It's not an event. It's not something that it is what it is. You know. So I find it funny, and I mean, it makes so much sense, his course of action, because of that. He was like, hey, these guys are not my friends neither. I am taking what I can from here and getting the heck out of here, so I can get back to where I need to be. He says the urgency also never died. I mean, he says he didn't know how many days he was out, and that actually had me so worried. I was like, how much time had actually passed?
right?
It
Yeah.
was scary. I was fearing for like what would happen to the kid, you know.
um Gio, how many times have you seen this movie?
One and a half.
One and a half. So you've seen it, basically you could say you're a noob, you just saw it recently.
Yeah, I was very very little. I mean, I was born way past this movie was made.
It's very
Mhm.
sparse when it gets shown.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I come from a country that, I mean, uh, people that are of science fiction or even like anime or even rock, you're considered an outcast. Really, it's a very niche community. It's very small.
Oh,
Like if
bummer.
like I used to love going to metal concerts and stuff like that. My brother was a heavy metal guitar player back there, and whenever I would go to a concert, you knew all the artists and all the people that would go to the concert because we will be the same people and it will be a small group of not even 200 people. So
Yeah.
we will hang around in the same places or in the same groups most of the time. You had a concert in the auditorium, all those 200 people in the auditorium, most chances that you know at least 100 of them because you always see them. So I mean, it
That's a
was nice
bummer.
because you get to have a close relationship with your artists that you love. But it was a bummer because like people are usually like that. They are mainstream on what everybody else do, so they are listening to only two or three specific genres that are more commercial in the country, and they're not open to this. And more for me, like I'm even a weird. I tell Robert all the time, I'm weird and proud. When I was growing up, like I was into music that was not even my time. When I was 15, I was into 70s classic rock, and then I was into classic music too or jazz. And who the heck was gonna like that in my country? Most people don't like jazz in here.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. This movie has it's amazing how you could actually watch it for a sci-fi drama.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just like Gio said, it's an onion. Once you start peeling, it gets deep, and it has so many messages.
Yep. I mean, let's not forget to mention. I mean, the acting was on point. Like when the bad guy showed up, I was like, "That's so like stamp of the time how villains will be played." You know, like I would say, you could you consider that campy? How the villains were like the lines of the villains were made.
Well, this movie was slightly campy. What do you think, Kim?
I, I think it's because of how dated it can be in certain
Mhm.
sections. I don't think it was intentional camp or
Yeah,
No, to
if
me
I'm
it was
gonna
it was no campy like
and
Star Trek and stuff like that neither. To me,
no, no.
I think if anything, yes, you could say it's almost like a season one, season two episode of either the original or next gen's track where it's the the message is shining through, but it still has a few limited things that just can't be helped. I think it's just all down to it's just that's where it is. It, it could have been better, and I still gotta hand it off. Just having read all this stuff about how what a troubled production it was, I still gotta tip my hat to trying to make it work.
Yeah,
but
you
I
know.
mean, I think it also gives a taste of vanilla to the property because would you imagine if Christopher Nolan would portray the bad guys? It would have been a lot more darker movie than
Yeah,
what we see.
Yeah,
And it would have make it more traumatic. Actually, probably he would have a way colder following than he has.
you
And,
know.
and I think that was prime and actually imperative to the success of the movie.
hmm
We spoke in previous episode on how that a production, an IP, a movie, a TV show, it's a product of a recipe
it
where
really is.
you have to have a chemistry uh, among the cast. You have to have the right writer, the right director, the right producer, the right cameraman. To make it the product that it is now. I think this movie is great. I think this movie has a cult following, not as big as many.
Yeah,
Um,
it's there,
and it would be a complete different movie if any of the part of the recipe has changed.
right?
It
I agree.
um w- one one thing that I really appreciate about this movie is it actually in a way, and I don't know if you guys let me know if I'm stretching because I tend to do that a lot. um this movie in a way shows you how if you want to change the world, you start changing yourself.
To me, this movie has the perfect recipe for the cure to war.
So let's go back to the beginning of the movie. Davish filled with hate with obvious reasons because he might not be in the political sense, But since he's a soldier, he has seen many of his fellow soldiers die at the hand of the drag.
He even says
So
it. He's never seen a drag in real life,
exactly.
It's
and he's
That's
killed so
another
systematic.
many.
and
It's
that's
And when
like,
another
you're in that
point.
wow, how
club,
can
when
you?
you've been told you got to hate everybody, you have
Yeah,
no other
Mhm.
it's
choice.
pure propaganda. It's pure propaganda. You know, it's like, how can you hate something you don't know?
And
And
Wolfgang Peterson was the right kind for this. I mean, he'd just done Das
yes.
Boot, showing the
Mhm.
German side and not trying to downplay anything or what have you. It was just all a matter of, it was like, okay, yeah, here's all these guys. Here's probably how they lived on the sub, fighting an unwinnable war, regardless of whether or not they were, Nazis or just Germans, doing what they've been assigned to do. It's just interesting just seeing how, in this case, it just uh, how they handle this all, because
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that, because when they're having a big fight, I think when the meteors are coming down, they start fighting. No, yeah, the first time they start fighting about who's right on the war or not.
Yeah.
And when they start explaining their motives, that tells a lot about who's who. You know, because
yeah,
I mean, the drags are not there to take over anybody or enslave anybody, but it's like, I'm not a prey neither. I'm not gonna let you just take all over me and my people and suppress them and actually beat them to death over your
It,
mhm,
it
benefit.
it makes you wonder because he was very clear as to how they're defending their territory. And so you see that argument, we were there, we were there, no, but we were there first. You're taking over. Um, so
And then he explains, like, yeah, you actually have a lot more places that you're taking over because you go and just destroy them. We're trying to explore. You know, that's the difference between conquering and exploring. And it's just like
yeah,
I said in the previous episode. This is actually uh, consistent throughout human history. Shown we always go for the conquering. We don't go to explore. There's very few explorers.
yeah,
That's maybe
no
why Marco
exploring
Polo.
really, other than blowing
That's why
everything
Marco
up.
Polo is so famous and why people in China have noodles nowadays. you know, but I mean, he was not a conqueror. He was explorer, and sometimes you can have a bigger impact in societies like that than just infusing fear on over the control that you can
So
take
much
on.
fear. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a whole different result on each recipe, and he actually explains
an
this
oldest
up.
trick in the book. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if the reason why, because when you use fear as a conqueror, you got an immediate response. Because you're the offensive party, and you get everybody on the defense. When you're an explorer, it is very likely that you will be remembered after your death.
Yep.
So you
It's a
don't have.
difference. It's different between a tyrant and a leader. You know, the leader gets there's road sleeps and gets down there with his team, where a
Mhm.
tyrant just gets in his chair and points finger. You know, and when you are respected because of fear or loved because of fear, the moment that you're gone, you're not gonna be remembered. It's gonna be a relief that you're gone. While when you actually earn people's love around you, you're gonna be missed and you're gonna be remembered by them. And probably you're gonna be remembered in so many ways that probably things that you did or things that you said are gonna be also requoted and infused into the society or groups.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And regardless of what did or didn't make the final cut, these people knew what they were making. Same thing as like the last Starfighter. There's another movie that just got the Blu-ray treatment. Some people
The
find it
last
cheesy,
fighter.
right? Some people find it cheesy. People find it campy. Some people find it deep, just enjoyable popcorn. It's same difference. And again, never was going to make its money back, but people who at the studio knew, what was there. And I don't think that one was just meant to be a basic, cheapy, cashing in on the Star Wars fandom. But this one, was more, again, it was kind of meant to be kind of like Star Trek, and it just was always, it was going to find its audience. It's just they got so distracted by having overspent so much money and then
Hmm.
having to change filmmakers and then filming locations. Just,
We actually covered the last Starfighter, and it's funny because
you did a good job on that.
and it's a good movie because it's a movie that it's perfect for a sequel. I think they left so much open to question,
Hmm.
and that's something that I think that I mean I don't think that a movie that it's good for a sequel has a bad ending, but it's a good potential. But on the other hand, for example, this movie did a magnificent job in giving you closure.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
a good development, a good start, and beautifully made and artfully made closure too. So I think that it's high quality of writing as well when you
I
look
have
at the
no
whole
doubt.
story.
I'm sure that they had to fight maybe something in development. Any other
Oh
movie
yeah.
would have definitely done the dreaded set it up for a sequel, just as it gets going. And they didn't have that because Lawrence Gordon, big, movie producer, Die Hard, 48 Hours, had just gone his separate ways with, Joel Silver and was just, he was the one who greenlit plenty of other productions like, Speed and what have you, just mega hits for Fox Company. And he, at
And
that point,
speed.
was just like, I need to get this and Aliens and these five other big movies that were hits for Fox. This
You
wasn't one
just
of them.
you mentioned speed, and you just revived like my crush for Sandra Bullock. When I saw her the first time, then I was like, oh my god, I was simping so hard on her.
Were you drooling?
Me? Oh yeah, man. And I was like 9, man. So it was like the start of raging hormones in teenagehood.
Oh yeah.
It was like you watching Barbarella, probably.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's another episode that we have done. I had a lot of fun recording only because it amazes me how, and just like in this movie as well, the mindset and what you remember watching this movie, early on, and then compared to watching it recently as an adult. Because I was 15 when I watched Enemy Mine, so my mindset, everything was completely different.
Yeah, man.
And
Barbarella, you just had to watch it to see who the fuck was Dano.
Yeah, if you're a kid, you're gonna probably just say cool, just like when you're watching
You,
track, and
you,
then
prob-
when you get
you
older,
probably are
you're
like, what's a deal, though?
yeah, with that movie, it's gonna be the battle. What I call is the Flash Gordon Battlefield Earth effect, where you're just like, and that happened.
I just
It
have to
happened.
ask. I just have to ask Gio right now, in retrospect, because you had a big thing when it comes to that style of movie, Flash Gordon slash Barbarella, that has its own style of
they
sci-fi
have
because
they
of
have a
you.
special place on my heart,
Right.
man. They have a
And
special
and,
place
and
on
Gio
my heart.
had Gio had reservation because he used to, not anymore. And you can go
Grabbing
back to those
damage.
episodes, listen to those episodes, and you'll see his thoughts. But I just want to ask his question as an update for our listeners, so they can compare his thoughts, back then and now that he's more experienced, if I can say that, in sci-fi. What
Am
what
I on
is
my
your
way to earn my card?
it's in the mail. What is your thought now, in retrospect, about Flash Gordon and Barbarella and
No,
those
I
styles of
stay true
movie?
to what I'm saying now. They have a special place in my heart, man. They're totally rewatch.
Cool.
Totally, man. And they are fun movies to watch, man.
Oh yes. Oh
That's
yes.
the best thing. Like when a movie has its good taste on comedy and they inject it in there, it keeps the viewer not tense all the time too. It's necessary, I think. Even the most serious movies, there's always a taste of comedy, unless it's Batman and Chris Nolan, and then it's very huge when you saw when you saw one joke in the whole movie. but I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Chris Nolan because I love how he make every movie a fork in your brain and just keeps you like wow, and you just got to keep on watching and rewatching.
Right. That
Oh my
Yeah.
god,
happens.
man!
So the reason why I brought that comment is because this movie is in the same arena. I remember watching this when I was 15, and I thought it was the greatest movie ever. It's amazing movie, and
I mean, don't
I
get me wrong, Barbarella is like a porn version of Divine Comedy from Machiavelli.
Yeah.
Like the outside of the cities and everything is like shit, man. This is like one of the rings of hell, but the cool part.
So now that I watch this movie, Enemy Mine, as an adult, I enjoy the movie. I still say this is an amazing movie,
Did you cry more
but
now?
my takeaways are completely different
Yeah.
now than my takeaways when I was 15.
Fair enough. I mean,
Cam,
you're bound
have you
to.
when have can you tell me when was if you can remember, when was the last time I mean the first time you saw this movie, and if this what happened to me is the case in you, and like after watching it recently, if you experience the same thing that I have.
How old were you when you watched it the first time?
So I'm gonna just say early 20s during college. I would say I saw parts of it throughout, and I could never. It was one of those I always would see parts of and never finish. It just was on at bizarre times, and it was never at any video rental store. I could never find it,
And
and
it was always playing in the networks
Do you,
like at
do you have
midnight.
Blockbuster still?
yeah,
No.
and even on the movie channels, it was just at a bizarre, lazy afternoon kind of deal, and it's a shame because it deserves a bigger treatment. So I'm glad that it's gotten the Blu-ray treatment, and I wish it's a shame that Wolfgang Peterson has just passed away. You know, the director. I would definitely like to see there be some kind of Q&A where they invite the actors together and just, on a Zoom even, and just record it on a podcast and have it out there. But I think it is liked even by the creators of something like Babylon 5, and I just with all these other movies that are kind of nodding to it. I had seen the movie Hunter Prey during college. That was at the video store, and it was by the guys who'd done the Batman fan film Dead End, where he fights the alien and Predator. But the whole movie itself, Hunter Prey, was with that same crew, and it was basically a Enemy Mine tribute. But I never put that together, even though so many similar plots have done that before. I'm sure if you were to even talk to people of more recent stuff like Battlestar Galactica or The Expanse, they would probably
Oh my god, The
praise this.
Expanse.
But
You want to
yeah,
hear something
wonderful.
funny about Battlestar Galactica? I haven't gotten more than episode 6, but the way I
Dude.
got into it is that I discovered a show called Caprica that was not finished. It was
The
discontinued.
spin-off, yeah.
And I
right?
fell in love with that show. I was like, why they stopped it?
He didn't
And that's how
know it
Robert
was
that's how
Galactica.
Robert told me. That's Battlestar Galactica. And I was like, really?
And look,
It's a prequel show.
I haven't quit on you, Gio. I'm gonna make you watch the 1970s Galactica. We're gonna do an episode.
I know.
I look forward to hearing you guys' take on
But
that,
this-
because
A
you
lot
two-
of
you
people,
two are
a lot
a
of,
fans.
2-year run, and much like
a
Buck
lot of
Rogers,
people
everyone
hate-
varies.
a lot
I
of
had a
people
question
hate
for
that
you
one.
two. I had a question for you two guys, since you are fans. The ships from the humans, what do they resemble more? Star Galactica or Star Wars? Even though in Star Galactica, I saw they were just like flying triangles.
Okay, well, if I could
Interesting.
message you guys, I could send you a link. In fact, let me show you this link right here. Here's what these spaceships, no one can see what we're looking at, actually look like before what you see in the movie. But yeah, can't put my
Because I had
finger
that
on
question,
it.
I was like, oh, it looks like a curved version of an X-wing.
I mean, there's got to be someone who worked and did illustrate some of that, but I'm kind of getting.
Let me see if I can
Oh,
show
this is
that.
I guess
a
I'll say
nice-
Galactica. It's definitely some kind of Bug Rogers Galactica thing. It is definitely
I
something
feel
you might
that
see.
vibe when I saw the space station too. Galactica.
And maybe a 2001-ish kind of moment, especially with the rotating station, just some kind of Arthur C. Clarke kind of
yeah, man.
just operating 9 to 5 as opposed to a battle station, like the Death Star or B5.
I feel. Oh, hold on a second. What?
Six engines, 6 giant engines on all these fighters.
It would have destroyed your back actually to drive that thing.
So basically,
oh my god, I used to play that game from 1991, Wing Commanders.
Yeah, I saw the author of that blog post.
Super Nintendo, man.
Yeah, check them out if you can. Sci-fi future war stories, which basically, any kind of futuristic warfare in the future. And I do kind of like this design because it's just like, if one of them gets zapped, you still got, again, 5 other engines that work.
And for all of you who are listening in, you'll get to watch this when the video releases a month from now. But I'm showing actually an image of the spaceship used in Enemy Mine. It has 5 engines in towards the back of the ship.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Definitely, and it's funny that you mentioned the Space Odyssey because it gets the environment on the space stations have kind of the same aesthetics for real, for real. Yeah,
Some
you're
kind of
looking at
old
it. I've seen this
school,
before. I've seen this before.
right?
Oh yes.
And it's not like you say, like just something crazy like in again Barbarella or Battlefield Earth. It is a very orchestrated. You can just, let's say they didn't even add any animation. You can just feel all the fumes and firepower and operating systems on these things just by looking at them. It just gives
Yeah.
that kind of feel.
It gives you more also the touch of reality when you got the special effects, which gives the viewer a better experience with it.
Yeah, because like an X-wing, in Star Wars and all the like, they go for the fantasy element and they live and breathe that. While this kind of much like the
Don't
Expanse
get
does
hurt,
try to.
Robert. Don't get hurt, Robert.
mhm.
Don't get hurt, Robert. Don't get hurt.
No, I'm not a diss, but it is interesting how it is like this kind of just looks like an actual fighter jet in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely. And I mean,
That
it
could
makes
have
a lot of
maybe a
more
crew
sense.
of, yeah.
It makes a lot of more sense too. The way that it's made, it looks like an Aston Martin on the front, though.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Something like that. Yeah.
But yeah, man, this was a fun
It's
movie.
definitely very original.
And I mean, I think that that's what the things that the little intricacies and details on any property that you watch that are gonna let them to be remembered standing alone as what they were, instead of being
Right.
a job of comparison. So I
Exactly.
mean, I think that everything, how they design, like how the medical treatments were made, like he's on the freaking bag that you actually use when you're in the cold weather to keep yourself warm. That's what they have on blankets in the hospitals.
Right.
All of it, all of it.
Oh man.
Did you know um and I kind of just heard this, I can't remember where. Um the language that was used by the drags in this movie was created from scratch, and
Much like
it's
Elvin and Lord of the Rings, and
yeah.
Vulcan and Klingon.
What I find
Suck
interesting
on
is the
that,
fact
Tolkien.
what I find interesting is in contrast to like Klingons and all this stuff that was actually an actual language that was created. This one was created from scratch in a way that it's not in the same way. It's not like its own language. It's just basically pronouncing Russian words in reverse.
Holy
Which is
shit.
nice because basically this force, I mean, a lot of people who are looking at it in retrospect notice there's a
Cold
lot
War.
of 80s, yeah, Cold War language that we are left to presume that this is if Russia and the US unite some giant, fascist space force. And I mean, even if they're not bluntly fascist, they're still, got the Reagan era of fear mongering and zap
Yep.
anything that's foreign to you. And so that is cool to know that, yes, they're basing certain Russian slurs and dialects and just pronunciation. And then, like you say, reversing it to just kind of just infer that these are kind of alien Russians or
Yeah,
Yep.
Klingons.
It's
I
funny
just
that you
find that
mentioned that.
interesting.
It reminded me because I actually not in the same note, but like I read from Percy Jackson that for him to do the sound of the Nazguls, he got a mule and then he distorted the sound of a mule. So you have the
Oh
donkey,
wow.
you have the donkey squealing, and then you have it backwards and then it's distorted, and that's a Nazgul, freaking king.
Hey, I got an idea. We can get Geo to squeal, and I can reverse it and make a new language.
No, man, I make a horrible pig.
Seal, baby seal.
And that could become the official language of Captain Chaos.
Hey man,
There
if
you
people
go.
vote for it, man, if we get 100 votes on it, we should put a poll. Then we'll make the shirt. I'll make sure that I make the shirt, man.
Yeah.
It, it's gonna have like a piggy body flying into space with my face. That's a good thing about being shameless, man. You don't care. You just do it.
Right. No shame, man. No shame.
Just do it. Cry about it tomorrow.
Oh man, going back to the movie. Another thing that I can recall that I really like how this movie, illustrated is the tender moments between
Hmm.
David
and
and
Samus.
Samus. Um, it's it almost hits you in the feels because
Oh, it hit me in the feels, bro.
we get to see the human reaction, and you could see it in any different things with but specifically when you have kids that are um they had no parents and they got what's the word that I'm looking for, um they got new parents, right? They came from the orphanage, maybe when they were babies,
Right.
and growing older, they start to notice, as kids do, the difference between them and their parents, and how it is typical because you idolize your parents and you want to be like them. And in this particular
What a
scenario,
mistake.
he's looking at David's hands.
What a mistake. No. Yeah.
He sees that David's hands, for example, they have 5 fingers and he has 3.
Hmm.
And it's like, and he starts asking those questions. As a dad, it hits me in the feels. I mean, I don't think they have to be a dad to have to be
No,
hit in the feels on this
as a
particular
guardian,
scene.
as a
You
guardian
have to be
figure to any
callous to not get anything from this. Yeah.
just as a guardian figure, I think, man. And I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that because he also hit another topic, like most, like not anymore that much, but maybe from my generation. How old are you? Like maybe 25, 30?
Me,
Oh, oh,
I am
you're
20.
not.
I am 25.
Plus two,
Oh,
two
really?
times to the square root.
At times 2, yes.
I'm about to say.
Oh my god, you look a lot younger than him. I'm 33. But like for the times that I come, basically like people would make taboo that a kid will be adopted, for example, and they
Mhm.
would hide it from the child. And I like how he naturally raised Samus, making normalizing that he's not his child,
His
but
uncle.
but at the same time, he is his paternal figure. He is the person that he can go for anything. Even though they were the only two there, he behaved the same way. And I mean, this also shows when he comes back to rescue him. Even the other BPA or BTA was the name of the force that he was part of.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Basically, even them felt disarmed at seeing how he was carrying him and cocooning him and trying to wake him up, and that endearment between two beings, like it disarmed both societies right there. The slaves from Drag and that became refugees, and the military force. You know,
Right?
it's like it breaks barriers. And I mean, I found also funny, and I mean, I've seen this in many liberating stories of slavery, but like there were a lot more drags in that base than humans. Like they could break out at any
Yeah.
moment and just take over.
Yeah.
And
It's funny that you say it's funny, no pun intended, because I
yeah,
would always hear this from one of my cousins who was a big film buff, and she's like, "Oh, I love that movie. So smart, so funny." And so I just thought it was interesting. Like, yeah, it's not a comedy, but there are some legit funny moments in the drama of them trying to understand each other,
yeah,
how they eat, how they why they're at war with each other, why they got different body functions. Yeah, it's just all
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And I mean, I think that David did a good job on absorbing and accepting those differences compared to Sammy. Sammy's was more from growing up, creating meaning of what he understood on those
Mhm.
differences. You know, but at the same
I
time, too, it's like that analogy. You can grab a horse and tie it to a plastic chair, and that thing would not allow the horse to go anywhere because that illusion that he's
that's
captured.
more than beating a dead horse. That's cruelty.
yeah.
Yeah, no, no, and I mean, in the rural places where people have horses, where I come from, like they would not have a big piece of wood that is attached to the building. You literally can tie the reins of your horse into a plastic chair. He will stay there. He will not run away,
Mhm.
even if he wanted to. And won't try to pull a chair, and that's the illusion of chains. And I mean, I think that the directors also depicted this beautifully when they show how many drags were part of the colony of slavers versus how many people were watching over them.
Mhm.
That Davidge took over took all of them now on his own practically.
Yeah, I want to go back to Samus for a little bit. It's one of those that scene when he's looking at the water. I don't know how you call it. It was a pond
Yeah,
inside the cave, and he's looking at himself, and he's noticing the big huge differences between him and Davidge, and you could, although it wasn't explicitly said, um with his comments and his mannerisms, you get to see how he's actually hating the way he looks because he was different from the person that he
looks like
idolizes.
yeah.
Yeah,
um
very much so.
that is very sad, and that's actually, you know, I speak to that. Actually, many episodes, I think the last episode I actually said something about that, where you know, it's really a shame, you know, because he's a kid. He's, you know, a- it's a kid, but it,
It kill. It's like the preface to the death of the innocence of a child
yeah, but you know, it's kind of like
by
what I said.
societal extenders. You
How
know,
and I think I said this in the last episode. It's like eh, our lives are short. Um,
Mhm.
apparently a lot shorter for drags. Um, I don't know. Maybe this is what's just happens to be an accident. Maybe they live longer. However, the point that I'm trying to make is we we have short lives in comparison to, you know, the span of the universe. Um, you want to make it the best that you can, so you have no regrets when you go.
Correct.
Since we have such a short time in this life, you want to make it the best you can, because you know we already have a lot of drama. We already have a lot of negative things happening in our lives. To make that our central point, considering that we have such a short time, don't let anybody else control or dictate how you feel. And I don't know, maybe because I overthink things
No,
usually,
you don't.
but when I saw that
You don't.
scene, it I felt very sad because this is a perfect example of what I was talking about. How, you know, he's a kid and he doesn't have obviously no one that tells him otherwise, so he doesn't know. But it's sad that he is perfect the way he is. We are all
Mhm.
perfect the way, you know. You hear people saying, "Oh, I'm ugly" or "I'm beautiful." It doesn't really matter. What matters? See, we all. What's the word that I'm looking for? There's a color for every taste, right?
Right.
So you don't want to call yourself ugly because that's how you perceive yourself. Because I can
If you say it long
guarantee
enough,
you,
you'll believe it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I can guarantee 100% there's one person out there that will consider you beautiful.
no man, I'm like a dragon there. I'm like a dragon stuck with damage. I'm gonna die alone.
but
But I love myself and I'm complete with me. and that's the
But
trick.
you know what I'm talking about. And
Yeah,
I hear that occasionally, and it's kind of sad. It doesn't matter how you look. You're basically letting society dictate what
who you are.
the illustration of beauty should be, and it cannot be illustrated. It cannot be dictated. Beauty isn't, just like it says, it's in the eye of the beholder. um so i- I was thinking about all this when I was watching this scene,
I
and it,
have a
it
line
just
for
made
you,
me
man.
sad.
I have a line for you, man. It's because Drax, you're amazing, just the way you are.
Wow. Of
And you heard it here
all the
first.
Bruno Mars songs, you're gonna.
But what better illustration to what I'm talking about than when Drag and Dabbage were looking at each other? Us as human will consider Dabbage to be handsome and Drag to be ugly. But from Drag's perspective,
And from the V's too,
Dabbage was
that
the
are
ugly
reptilians.
one.
From the V's that are reptilians too. Drax is a beautiful one.
But you see what I'm talking about? From his perspective, Dabbage was ugly. And is the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true.
I'm sorry, I get deep.
No,
And
and it's
sometimes for no reason.
I actually abused that yesterday.
Oh man, you guys gotta wait for that episode to hit.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I derailed yesterday so much. We were talking. I mean, we're talking about Ghost in the Shell, so you cannot imagine how many
Oh,
social political topics, psychological topics. I just derail. Like I just ram and ram about it.
oh yeah. And to quote Ray, rails, we don't need no rails.
don't need no stinking rails. Yeah.
Man, train in the water, boat in the rails.
Oh my god. Um, let me start asking this question to you first, and then we'll move on. Um, and the reason why I want to ask you first is because you basically just, although you saw it when you were younger, you can't recall much because you
No,
were that.
I can't even recall how shameful was that. I mean, being a kid that wanted just to look at funny things or action cartoons, like I was into Dragon Ball back then, you
Hmm.
know. So there had to be some fighting and action involved for me for my attention to go. It has to be Cartoon Networks like Dexter or Cow and the Chicken, you know. And watching this movie is like I would lose the interest because this movie is a lot deeper than that, and like my consciousness and my interest in these important matters that involve so much who we are as a society and as a collective community uh, didn't matter as being a kid. I mean, I was younger than 8 years old,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I didn't even like I just poof. Oh, an alien. Okay, on. There's no fighting here. But poof.
Pose, look, it's an alien.
Yeah, just like that. Just like that. Like I look at it, with like, okay, nothing is happening. There's no fighting here. I didn't even get to see the scene where the freaking ground slug was trying to eat Davidge. So,
Movie
I was
needed
like, okay, no,
more
poof, and I just pass it off.
needed
But
more sex and violence.
Yeah.
and basically, it escaped my interest, but I did not forget the movie. It did made
Well,
an impact.
the question that I have is based on, you hear me talking about impressionable moments of this
Mhm.
movie, and I have many because I've seen this movie many times when I was
Nice.
younger and now. Do you have one or multiple moments now that you watched it now, recently, with a different mindset that were impressionable to you when you watched this movie?
Yes, there's three moments that I can tell you right off the bat.
Okay.
The first one is when actually David is learning the Tolem and he's singing it on the hills right before the shower of meteorites.
Hmm.
After that, when actually he's by himself with the baby and he's trying to feed him, that was a moment that I was, wow, man, like this is something. And then at the end of the movie, when he's walking amongst the drags by himself with
Oh,
Samus, because I mean I was already like longing for a good proper closure. And when he starts like giving you like, so he went and took examines, I was like, oh shit, they're not gonna give me my ending. It's gonna end in here and happy ending and that's it. And
Happy
actually,
ending, no pun intended.
yeah, that's what she said. And basically, basically, it was very very rewarding. And those three
Yeah,
moments I can tell you for me were like, oh yes,
I,
like
I
I
would
felt
have
the
to
dope
say,
coming into my brain.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that because I mean, although it wasn't really expressed, and this would be one moment that I would wish I'd have a little bit more information on that ending. But you could assume by what we see that either the
And
word end
you can
ended
assume
or
too
it.
that the Drags are playing on their third season already of NHL.
Hmm?
You can assume that Drags have their own teams on NHL right now on the third season or something.
But you could assume that the world the war ended or is on its way of ending, and
Yes,
it's all due to the fact that, just like I said before, if you want to change the world, you start with yourself. Davidge started changing himself for for
and look at
whatever
the
reasons,
effect
and
he
in
had,
doing so,
and
he
look at
changed
the
it.
effect that had on the surroundings about him, all his colleagues, and all the Drags that were refugees from
Mhm,
him, from his actually for what he did. Like he has an effect, but it has to be from within
mhm,
for it to happen. And I mean, and he took it on himself. He took all the risk of being captured or killed on his way on escaping the base to do it. So there's a lot of heroism involved and a big redemptive factor
mhm.
on how he behaved and on what he did. You know,
So now the question goes to Cam.
Yeah.
That and I know this might be bigger because you've seen this movie a lot. I don't know if you've seen it as much as I have, or but
I'm gonna
probably.
definitely,
definitely watch it a few more times just because
yeah.
the message is just so good.
So if you have one or multiple moments, you can mention them all, if you like. I'm just kind of curious to see what were those moments that you found very impressionable in this movie.
Uh, Definitely the set design. It's a perfect mix of sets and some kind of outdoor. It never feels restricted.
Some
Mhm.
California desert,
I was thinking
Nevada.
it's actually not California, believe it or not. It's actually Europe. They filmed it.
Where is it?
Where is it?
Yeah, do you have any idea? I was wondering when I saw it on the desert. I was like, "What's a
Uh,
desert?" And I was like, "Yeah, maybe
Looking it up
California."
again. They mentioned they filmed it in Budapest,
Oh
Oh wow.
wow! And I thought of all the deserts across the world, but
and then
never
they
crossed my
moved it
mind.
to a few other places. I'm seeing Spain is listed in the Canary Islands. Iceland
Wow,
is where it was filmed in the deleted scenes in the original cut, and they
Iceland makes sense. Iceland makes sense, and it crossed my mind. But like, I thought for desert, I thought Australia. I thought the Sahara Desert probably very mainstream, like the first desert. But then I was like, no, maybe just a California desert closer to Hollywood. But I mean, it's pretty interesting, and I mean, Iceland has very intricate and mysterious landscapes that have a
mm-hmm,
lot to tell about our past. Actually,
totally, and it's a rarity. It really is.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I interjected there. You can continue telling
No,
us
it's fine.
all the moments.
So, any more moments before I move on to the next question?
It'll probably come to me. Yeah.
That's quite all right. The next question is, um, there's, you hear me talking about so many messages that I found, um, that this movie had, regardless of the era that
Mm-hmm.
you watch this movie in. And I'll open it up. Whoever wants to go first is fine. But if you have a message or multiple messages that you think this movie has that really appeals to you, what would that message be? And anyone,
Cam can go first.
huh?
I'll let Cam go first.
Okay, so I mean, we mentioned prejudice and everything. I think just challenging yourself, surviving on a planet, surviving on so many other things. I mean, even though so much of it is like, I don't want to say there's no montages. There is a
Yeah.
giant passage of time. This actually takes place over 3 years when you watch it more carefully and see the on-screen year displays. I think you can just overall say that like everything is just you can overcome your circumstances even when they seem impossible, but it's not done in a phony way. It really does hit home on there's so many possibilities.
Yeah. Definitely. Oh, Gio, what do you feel? If there was a message or multiple messages that you have this movie made, what do you feel that was? What calls your attention?
Well, I think I mentioned this on the previous episode, but basically to look beyond our own psychology and our own customs, this movie hit home. Uh, this movie hit home very much on how we are more alike than we think of, and I think that the main thing with us humans is that we like to look at our differences instead of our commonalities.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an automatic pilot for us to, when we go into comparison mode, we're looking at what we're different in instead of looking at commonalities, and that's what keeps us always at war with ourselves and with anything around us, because we want the world to be how we think it should be, or like us. And I think that that's also some kind of godly complex that we have since we're made in
Mm-hmm.
this image, poetically speaking, and basically it's just instinctive about it. So we have to. That's what I mean. I said it on the previous episode too. That's why I strive to be always counterintuitive because it helps me stay on a balance of not letting my own biases fool me of what reality could be. To
Mhm.
reality is really a combination of my perceptions and the world around me. It's not anymore a thing of if a tree falls in the forest, does it really make a sound or not? Yeah, it makes a sound, you know.
You're just not
And
there to hear it.
exactly. And because I'm not there to hear this, I mean, like existence on a whole doesn't really
Right?
continues to go on.
Does,
It's
does the
bigger
light
than
on
me.
the fridge stay on when you close the door?
Yes, because I clicked the button actually. I actually done that. I click on the button, like, okay, it closed. It actually turns off.
If you
I
say
look for
so.
that button. I actually look for that button on my fridges. But yeah, that's my takeaway on it. I mean, that's why it impacted me so much when he's teaching him the, the principles of Shismar, and I'm like, bro, this is Buddhism, straight up, and aliens practice it. Taoism, they practice it, and how could they know of? It's because it came from somewhere beyond their physical realm, probably. Uh, there's so many things that are just right now a blur into what we think is fact or what we think is science. That's why I'm so excited too, because of quantum science being in his bed crib, basically being born. But it's
Mhm.
gonna open so many questions that we have that it's gonna expand beyond our comprehension too, which is why it's important for us to look at things beyond our own assertion of how things are
Mm-hmm.
structured. Not try to make it to our image and try to actually limit it to what we use as tools to create meaningful experience.
Bingo.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because there was a specific scene where Davidge is telling Drag, I heard that message. I think it was reading his religious text, and it's like I heard that before from another book, is referencing to the Bible, and he says, yeah, because that kind of message transcends.
Yeah.
So it actually plays.
He was telling him when an enemy does a run to you, you do not run back to them. You actually give them love and hope that they actually give love back.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And that hit home, man.
Yeah.
That shit got in me.
Impelled.
Yep.
But I get it. It's just we don't see that in society anymore, and I think that's the biggest problem. If and I'm gonna sound like such a cliche, but it's a lack of love. And,
It
and
really
when I
is.
mention love, people imagine, oh yeah, you're gonna, girlfriend, boyfriend. No, 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 no. Love in
Hmm.
general, and that's what's
Because
missing
we
from
relate
society.
love to vulnerability, and we don't like to show vulnerability. We think that that's a
Exactly.
weakness, you know.
Hmm.
And I mean, so we cave ourselves into our own inner walls and forget about who we are and try to be who within society think we should be. We are more concerned on being accepted and what other thinks of us than what who we really are and what we think of ourselves.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think that
Mm.
that's the main problem with society today. And so much that, I mean, I still do it. I don't care if people think I'm crazy, but I find myself sometimes talking by myself because people just deject out of a conversation because they lack interest in talking about all these topics. They want to be talking about
It's
trends,
gonna
about the
happen.
Kardashians and shit like that.
Yeah.
They don't want to be talking about brainy things. They don't want to talk about science or arts, you know.
Right.
And I mean, it makes you, in a way, it's like I think Charles Bukowski said this. Well, when you become awakened, you become lonelier too, because
Yes, you do.
you start seeing that you don't have that much common with society. When you see where the masses are going, go in the opposite direction. And
Right.
that's where you're gonna find maybe what they're running from. Is what they're actually looking for.
Yeah.
Bingo.
I think the Beatles were very, very smart to
Oh
genius
yeah.
genius level. When they said all you need is love.
Yep.
I strongly believe that, and it's missing from society.
And cocaine,
Um,
so you can play like the Beatles. A lot of cocaine, so you can play like the Beatles.
I mean, that's one way to do it.
It's better than the route that Lou Gehrig took. No heroin.
oh my God, yeah, and this is why we love Captain Chaos. Awesome. Um, so I guess we have come to the point, the moment in this podcast where we ask that question that we ask in every episode is, and I could probably go first. Um, what are your final thoughts on this movie?
Essential
Um,
sci-fi.
I'm sorry.
Essential sci-fi.
Oh yeah,
Oh yes.
it's
Oh
it's a
yeah.
must. It's a must watch. It's
Definitely.
a must watch. Um, if especially if you've seen it a while ago and you haven't revisited,
Hmm.
um, you have to watch it. And if that is the case, um, reach out to us and let us know because I'm really curious to see what is your take and what you took away from the movie watching it now versus when you watched it before. I took away different things. Not necessarily, I could not say that one was better than the other one. It's just different perspectives, and I found that really interesting about this movie. and and,
Hmm.
and the messages that I'm not sure if they were, I like to think they were intentional, but it's kind of hard to feel they were intentional because at the time that this movie released, we didn't have the issue. Well, at least I like to think that we didn't have the issues that this movie was talking about. But how the message of this movie, no point intended, transcends uh, the era that it was released in. And I
Hmm.
find that fascinating, and not many movies um, can do this. What this movie has done. I know it's easier for a sci-fi movie to do this because, as it is, sci-fi is just a thought experiment. But I love how this movie does it, and how it gives you that message that transcends eras.
And nonetheless, it's still experiment, so it's actually part of the science community.
I
Huh?
mean, everyone involved could disown this movie, and we would all like it
Yeah.
because there
Yes.
is just such a bigger picture to this.
Oh,
That,
yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying you're an idiot if you don't like it. I'm just saying you would basically, the ideas just speak louder than any of the actions in here. Yes, there's some action in here to get everyone's attention, and just because that's just part of the story. It's basically, I mean, all the comparisons to Hell in the Pacific and everything else, all the social commentary got fruit at most everyone. It was just, again, it's just much like the people in this movie who were stranded on the planet. This movie got stranded midway before it
Yeah.
even got released. So it's just, it is what it is.
It's what
Yeah.
Robert calls a sleeper to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like a sleeper. Yes.
I have yet to
Mhm.
encounter anyone who just does not like this. Like, it's, chances are, if anyone doesn't like it, they probably just saw part of it when they were a kid, or again, just they hate the sci-fi genre to death. And
Or
well,
they just like
let's,
cop drama TV series.
yeah, there you go. Let's just hope anyone who doesn't like this, let's just hope we never meet them. So,
Oh no, I'm chaotic, man. I would love to meet them.
there.
You can ask Robert. I actually enjoy myself with a conflictive conversation so much that people get annoyed with me.
Are you agreeing, disagreeing? Yes.
Yeah, agree to disagree, which actually is important part to me of finding a common ground. Is that
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when I'm having a conversation with somebody, and I find that a big respect and a big disrespect, is if the other person is willing to consider what you have to say. Like when I'm talking to somebody about a dispute or a discussion, I tell them
Mm-hmm.
straight up, I don't want to convince you. I want you to consider what I have to say, and I want you to make your own realization. It could be a
Bingo.
completely different idea of what I
Don't
have.
just say it just because, hey, it sounds cool. You know?
Exactly. But at the same time, it's like, are you trying to convince me when I have a conversation? I have people that say like, yeah, I just want you to see things the same way I do. And I'm like, no, man. So we're not having a conversation. This is a monologue where what I tell you
Yeah.
comes through an ear and goes through another one, and then it's your turn for me to listen to you, where you're gonna try to brainwash me. You
Yeah.
know, and that's when I see the disrespect straight up. It's like you're not even being taken into consideration, and you're
Mm-hmm.
wasting your time and your saliva on it. But when you do that, you both can get out of that conversation being completely different people, believing in completely different things, or maybe
I
in the same
agree
thing.
100%. And those are the conversations that I love, where
It's
you
kind of like when you
learn.
do an interview. Do you want an organic one, or do you want one that's just by the numbers, by the book?
Oh, one that with accusatory questions. You have those two.
It's not real questions, is it? If it's all pre-scripted,
Yeah,
Exactly.
no, and like there's a lot of like that's another thing. Like I am excessively observant of everything. So like when I'm talking to somebody, I'm even seeing if they're giving me questions that are close ended or that have already like a stage narrative behind them. Like, oh, so you'd say this, and I'm like, no, I did not say that. You're telling that I say that. You're not listening to what I'm saying. you
Yeah.
know.
You even watch my Twitches.
right? Watch my damn Twitches, man.
But yeah,
But
man.
I agree with you. It's like it's like I said before. We are the person who we are right now because of our experiences and our surroundings. Everything we do on a daily basis makes us that much dynamic, where we are not the same person today that we were yesterday because of that. And the way that we can grow as an individual is to be exposed to different perspectives, of thoughts and ideas that you have. It makes us grow, and you become stagnant.
We have to cherish that more. Grow,
Eh?
grow, grow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not being
And,
mad
and
at
you
the
know
same formula that's not working or that you're distressed with.
exactly.
It's like as I say, using the same formula to get a different result is madness.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, so that concludes this portion of the this segment of the podcast. Should we move on? Are you ready for the last segment, Gio?
Yes, sir. And I also
Okay.
wanted to mention before we move into it, because I forgot to mention, but uh, I wanted to also give a call to action to our listeners. Like, feel free to call to our hotline, 305 563 6334, and let us know what you think about the show. Let us know your thought on any of the episodes. I'll make sure that we give you a shout out. The hotline is open 24/7, and we'll play it on our episode. If you call, we'll play your message too, so all our listeners can listen to you too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you have a message for any of the hosts, if you have a message for any of the guests, if you wanted to hear our thoughts on a specific IP that we haven't done, just leave us a message, and
Yeah.
we'll definitely play it on the next episode. Okay, so here we go.
The science in sci-fi.
So for this segment, actually, Ray, I am taking over your white coat.
Yeah, Ray, we are sad we're not here today with us, but we understand, you know.
But we have you here close in our heart, in our
Yeah,
Alita,
yeah.
Alita nuclear hearts.
There you go.
Basically, and it's actually a topic that I actually am very passionate about. I love languages. I speak three, and I actually found myself learning French. And when my aunt was learning Italian too, I was learning with her. I got to a point that I actually got first grader level of Farsi in less than 6 months. So I discovered I have a good attitude for language. So language also with aliens is just another form of it. And I found that there, like when I was watching the movie, I found actually an article from American Science that shows of how we can learn a language even if it's not derive on its structures from ours, even though Cam actually revealed to us how this one was made. I could not make sense of like that's how it comes from. And
Right. It's
yeah, no, and I
underplayed.
mean the way that he learns is just the same way that we would try to learn anything else when we have full
We
body
observe, we
interact body.
listen.
And I mean, there were many things that they have access to, like they have body language. Uh, Even though his emotional expressions were different than ours, they were cue for specific states of mind, which I think is imperative also for learning how to communicate with others. And this guy,
Yep.
there was a researcher called Everett that spent more than 30 years on a Amazonic tribe that was isolated from society from the beginning of times. That they use oh man, this word is
Monolinguistic.
monolinguistic sounds for
Monologue.
communicating at all, and they lack counting, they lack sense of direction, like right or left. They would not use this kind of thing, so you basically could learn how to talk to them by basically pointing at something up and making a sound.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it teaches us that we can learn anything if we have all these faculties as to play with in between. Because I mean, sometimes you can even communicate with somebody even without making a sound or really opening your mouth by making a sign.
Right.
So that's why I think communication is actually a lot less composed by the wording and the grammar on it, but I think that also those things, emotion, tone on your voice, your body language, are gonna be
Yeah.
big on the meaning and how that message is received. Sometimes you can say something, and just because you're stressed or because you are mad with that person, they're gonna have a whole different message
Mm-hmm.
just because of that. And I found very interesting how he spent so many years actually on communing with these people, studying them, finding out that there was nothing derived from it. Because most of the languages that we have, they can be called up to either Latin or some ancient form of Chinese,
Hmm.
uh, or
Bingo.
Arabic. And but this was like something that was standalone on its own place. I mean, the first forms of writing that we have is back in Mesopotamian communities back in the days, and it was writing characters with your fingernails on clay. You
Yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, if our listeners want to look at that article, it's called use one of the properties that we like very much as an example for it, which is arrival,
Arrival. Oh
because
yeah.
they actually use a lot of these studies to implement how we learn to communicate with the hectapods on the movie, for example. Which I mean,
Mhm.
it's a totally different environment if you think about it. This was more on hands learning experience for Davidge than actually calling the big professor from Oxford that actually he's already have a whole life doing this thing. This guy had none of these preparations to help him out, and that's what it shows you. Like, it's one of the things that also helps me think like everybody's capable of anything at some level, but we have to take off those barriers and say no, I can't. At least we have to try.
There's also
But
the comfort zone. So if you
yeah,
force someone to be completely immersive in a language where they can't not speak their native language or hear that native language at all,
mhm,
that person will be able to learn that other language a lot faster.
yeah,
Because it's all to the comfort zone. When you're like here, for example, let's say I want to learn Chinese, for example, right?
mhm.
Just to pull a language. Um, I I still listen to English songs. I still watch English TV, and I only am exposed to the language whenever I sit down for the hour or two that I'm learning the language.
That's
And
gonna
there's a
be
big, huge
detrimental.
difference.
Yeah, no, it's going to be
Exactly.
detrimental to your learning process. And I can tell you this by own experience because speak fully fluent Portuguese to the fact that I'm talking to a Brazilian and they will ask me, "Where you from?" And I'll be like, I'm
Not
Dominican.
here.
Like, I'm Dominican. I'm like, no, you speak like Brazilian. And they will tell me that in Portuguese. And because I even play with the different accents within the regions in Brazil, and I mean, and it helped a lot. Besides being with a person on a marriage that was from there. Before that, I have friends. I work with Brazilians, and I actually embrace their culture. Like I listen to the music. I like to watch TV on Portuguese, and all those things were very imperative to make me absorb that language. I had a teacher in 12th grade that speak fully Portuguese, and he told me I was just thrown the country without knowing a word, and in 3 months I was talking it because the need and the necessity to communicate also gets you, and that's important thing that also we are social beings. That's why it's so
Mhm.
detrimental for a human to be alone for so long, unless you're enlightened person or a yogi or something like that that don't need any of that. You can live on a cup of water a month and a cup of rice a month. And that's not normal for the any other human being.
Right.
Yeah,
Uh, but
and I think
basically, yeah,
that is what this movie does is that you could see this happening, the immersion, because they're alone in this planet with no one else but themselves.
yeah,
That is a complete immersion, and you're going to learn that language.
yeah. And I mean, everybody that asks me about learning a language, I tell them everything you need is to expose yourself
It's all
to the
there.
native language yourself, and to have at least one person that is native from that tongue that you can have constant contact with them, have a friendship of that that background, that you can actually exercise that muscle continually. Like when you and I were trying to learn Korean, Robert, if we actually have a Korean neighbor or person that lives nearby, I bet you whatever you want that we will be talking Korean today.
That, that.
Eh?
Awesome, awesome.
Opa.
Opa, opa. Yeah.
Awesome. So Cam, thank you so much
Thank you, man.
for
Anytime.
coming on our show. It was a lot. It's a lot of fun. I hope we don't scare you with me overthinking.
Hey,
Just
man.
No, I mean, why else would we not want to listen to this? We want some insight into the science behind the science, the thought behind the thought, and just
awesome.
show that not everything has to just be pew pew, mindless space travel.
Exactly.
Action entertainment and bloodshed.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And one more time, can you tell the audience your podcast and where they can find it?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Jacked Up Review Show is on Twitter, Anchor, Podbean, Apple, Instagram. We are everywhere. We got something for everybody. We'll take requests. Just actually hit us up on one of those social medias.
I might
Jacked Up
take you
Review
up on
Show.
that.
Awesome.
And we'll get you on.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. You guys should just listen to like I said at the beginning of the show, just pick up the last episode, listen to it, and then let me know what you think. I'm sure that your next response to me would be thank you. So
Right.
um, let us know. And again, thank you so much. You have no idea how much we appreciate you coming to our show every week. We love doing this. And all I can say is we would not be here without you supporting us by listening to our show. So thank you so much. We are really appreciate your engagements on Twitter. Keep the conversation going. When this episode releases, just go in on Twitter, reach out to us, and let us know what your thoughts are about this movie. If you like anything that we said, if you don't like something that we didn't say, we have Captain Chaos here for those. But reach out. Let's start this conversation. There's nothing better for sci-fi fans than talking about the thing we love the most, which is sci-fi in any flavor. So again, thank you so much for being in our show today, listening to us. And we thank you and we hope that you come back for the next episode. Thank you.